Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. Happy Monday, December 4th. We've got plenty of news to get into today. We'll talk a little bit about James Harden. We'll talk about the in-season tournament, which picks up even more steam tonight, and a number of other news items. Joining me, as always, is Keith Smith. I'm Trevor Lane. Keith, how are you doing? And are you excited for the quarterfinals of the in-season tournament?
I am, yeah. I'm really excited. It was cool seeing a lot of the quotes come out from a lot of the guys over the last couple of days as teams really, the teams, especially the ones playing in the quarterfinals, they were off throughout the course of the weekend. So there was a lot of stuff coming out from those teams, or not, I guess not fully off, but you know what I mean. So there was a lot of stuff coming out from those teams through practices and shoot arounds and stuff of, hey, what does this mean to you? And for the most part, most of the players admitted, hey, that's a lot of money on the line. But they also talked about, like, yeah, I think it was Jalen Brunson said something like, look, if there's something to win, we want to win that thing. Like,
Yeah.
let's go win. So I think it's going to be really fun to watch these, and the kind of high stakes in these games. Anytime it's a single elimination too, that adds a heightened sense of drama, because there's no chance to, all right, let's fix what went wrong and figure it out for the next one, like the playoffs are. So that's going to be a fun aspect of it too. So I'm really excited for tonight and tomorrow with the 4 games.
I think that, going into this, one of the big questions is, will the players care? Will they care about this or not? Or will they just try to load manage these games, or what is that going to look like? So far, the answer has been yes. The answer has been yes, they definitely care. And so to me, that means we're going to get playoff intensity games in the beginning of December. And I think we already got them in November too. We saw that through the other tournament games, and that's fantastic. That's exciting because, look, let's face it, over an 82 game season, you can tell when it's just another Wednesday night in November or whatever. And the guys, look, they're playing hard and all that, but it's a different feel when it's a
Mm-hmm.
playoff intensity type game. And I think that's what we're going to get in these games tonight. We've got the Celtics and the Pacers, and we've got the Pelicans and the Kings. I'm excited for both of these because you're going to get that. Again, it's just like the All-Star game discussion that we had a few weeks ago. If the players care, then I'm going to care. And I think that's exactly what we're getting here. The players care about this, so I'm going to care about it. And I'm excited. I think this is going to be a lot of fun, even though I guess, jumping ahead a little bit to one of our news items, your Celtics are going to be missing Kristaps Porzingis tonight, correct?
Yeah, he's going to be out. It sounds like this might be the last game he misses. It sounds like he could be back. If they win, they'll play Thursday in the in-season tournament semis in Las Vegas. If they lose, they'll play Friday. They'll host the loser of the Bucks Knicks game in Boston on Friday. So it sounds like he'll be back at the end of that week. They'd initially said it'd be about a week, but again, that was the whole reevaluated in a week. We'll take a
Yes.
look at it. And it sounds like he needs a little more time. I don't know. You're not deep into Celtics Twitter like I am. So there was this whole thing. He tweeted a picture of a snow covered like porch and driveway, and tweeted Latvia in it. And people are like, why did he go to Latvia? Well, it was confirmed he did it. And he was basically, either that's a picture someone sent him of home, or he was like had a memory of home or
Right.
whatever. And he tweeted, or I guess posted it on Instagram, and people were like getting like, what is going on here? Like, why is he in Latvia? And that was like a day long drama yesterday. Yeah, yesterday was like you
Porzingis
and me.
watch.
Well, it was like you and me in the off season, where it's like, all right, what, any crumble of news out there like that we can attach onto and get something out of, because there was no games yesterday. So like everybody was like scrambling for anything to talk about
Mhm.
basketball. It felt like that throughout the course of the day. So that was like the big drama. And then lo and behold, he's in Indiana riding the exercise bike this morning as the team's going through shoot around. So he's here stateside and presumably getting well. So, but yeah, he's going to be out tonight, and that's a pretty big loss. If we remember back just a handful of weeks ago, they hammered the Pacers in a
Mhm.
game. They beat them, I think, by like 40 or 50 points in that game in the end, and they scored 155 points. Boston did, and just kind of did whatever they wanted and got into the game like that. So without Porzingis, I don't think it'll be quite that easy this time around. The Pacers are a pretty good team, but Tyrese Halliburton's also questionable, so hopefully he's able to play. He's got sounds like he's got an infection going on, upper
Oof.
respiratory infection, so hopefully he'll be able to be out there and we'll get a fun game tonight.
Yeah, right now the Celtics are a 5.5 point favorite, and then I think a really fun doubleheader here where you've got the Pelicans and the Kings. Like
Yeah.
that's an exciting one. Those are two teams filled with young players, hyper athletic guys. That this can be a blast as well. The Kings really move the ball up and down the court quickly. They get threes up very very fast, and of course you know what the Pelicans can do as well when they're healthy. And Zion Williamson can be an absolute wrecking ball. So I'm excited for this one too. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And it's also kind of cool to see two teams like this that are kind of both on their way in the upswing in the mix here.
Yeah, absolutely. These are the teams this thing was made for, right? These Pelicans, Kings, and Pacers. Like this is what this tournament's all about. And then I would say the Knicks, like the other teams that are around, the Lakers, the Suns, the Celtics, and the
Mhm.
Bucks. They're all contenders of some various degrees, right? They're all teams that have an eye on, hey, let's be in the finals. And not that these other teams don't, and not that they couldn't make the finals.
Yeah.
I'm not going to knock them down that much, but that's just not the level of team that they're at. So this is a chance to really get through. And this Pelicans Kings game should be really fun. Both teams are coming in about as healthy as they've been all season long. The Pelicans have just about everybody of consequence in the lineup, so that'll be fun to watch them kind of go. They had a game 2 games ago when basically everybody played. Trey Murphy made his debut. And boy, he brings a whole different level with his
Mhm.
shooting and the things he can do. I I am very, very curious to see what they do. He's gonna force his way into the starting five one way or another. And I just don't know at whose expense it's gonna
Yeah.
come at, right? Because you're probably not going super small and sitting Valanciunas. And then Ingram and Zion are kind of like your all-star level guys. He's not going to displace CJ McCollum. So does he overtake Herb Jones? And then that removes your best defender. It's going to be really something I'm going to be watching and tracking here. Now, they can probably get away with it for another 6, 7 games of, all right, we're going to bring him off the bench because we're just getting
Mhm.
him back in the flow and all that stuff. But eventually it feels like he's going to push his way into that starting five. And that has the potential to be a little bit messy for a team that's, loaded, or maybe it eventually takes care of itself with a trade down the line. Now, that could be something with that. So we'll see. And then on the Kings side, De'Aaron Fox, he was actually, that's what that tweet was, is he was named Western Conference Player of the Week. Him and Julius Randle. So
Mm.
were named Players of the Week for each
I've
conference.
seen that.
So De'Aaron Fox is, you get him back. He's fully back in the fold after being out for a little bit with an ankle issue. They've got Kevin Herter's back in the lineup now too. So they're and Keegan Murray as well is back from being out with a back injury. So they're full go. So that's going to be a really fun game and fun style of play too for those two teams, especially for the old East Coast guys like me who tend to be falling asleep by the end of the first quarter. I'll be able to stay awake and watch this one all the way through.
Well, that's certainly helpful for you, unless you happen to get a dog falling asleep on you. Then you may just conk
True.
out as well. Behind the scenes, so Keith, when we're first trying to start the show, and I text Keith, okay, here's the link. Let's go. I get a picture back of the dog asleep on on Keith, and he said it's going to be a minute.
He
Yeah,
was
it
out
was nap
too, all
time. He
60
was
pounds, like
passed out.
laying in my lap in the recliner, out cold, like just completely zonked out. Like he did not, and he was not happy to get up. So he's probably not going to make a happy dog appearance here on the show today because he was a cranky little guy.
It was a doggy delay. A doggy
Yeah,
delay.
that's it. Yep.
All right, let's jump over to the James Harden news. James Harden talked with Sam Amick of the Athletic and said, "Yeah, I expected a max contract, and that was what he felt was communicated was going to be coming. It was kind of what we assumed this was the case
Hmm.
because he took less money last year and everything that he was expecting the 76ers to take care of him this past summer, and obviously that didn't happen. It also seemed like he was particularly upset that the communication with him stopped, that and then he felt like he was getting frozen out, whereas if there had been communication, I'm sure he would have been happy if they said, hey, James, there is no max deal, but we can do this instead. But he said, look, at least then we can start a dialogue going, we can go back and forth. I was frozen out. The communication stopped. And at that point, that's apparently when he said, "Yeah, that's it." He said, "I'm very intelligent. I know what's going on," and said, "That's it. I'm out." Um, So I think it just kind of confirms what the suspicion was, at least from Harden's side. I'm sure if you asked Daryl Morey about it and he was just, you know, being truthful about everything, he would give probably a different version of it. But nonetheless, in James Harden's mind, he was promised something. The 76ers went back on that, and that's where he said, that's it. I'm done. I don't want to be part of this anymore.
Yeah, it also seems like as they went back on it, like you said, it was not only did they go back on it, but then the communication just stopped. And he
Right.
feels like, I think for him, and I'm very much putting words in his mouth here, but it feels like the tone of that interview was, hey, we might have still been able to get past not a max deal. But once you stopped talking with me altogether, like then it was very clear, like, all right, this is over. And he goes into detail in the interview. Everybody should go read it.
Mm-hmm.
Very well done by Sam Amick, and he asks really good questions. He doesn't kind of just give up and not ask his questions. Like you could tell, like he was really kind of pushing to
Mm-hmm.
get some answers. And what's interesting in this interview is he goes into detail like how close him and Daryl Morey were. Like
Yeah.
we know how close they were from Daryl Morey's side. We got that out of the Ramona Shelburne piece that he has like a portrait that he
Right.
had commissioned about James Harden, like hanging on the wall of his house. So that's obviously a big deal there. And then you've got these guys are, we're super tight. And James Harden kind of goes in like, hey man, once he cut it off with me, like I was like, what went on here? This was a decade long relationship, and now it's gone like this. So clearly he wasn't very happy about the whole thing, and not there. And then he also, there's a little bit of stuff in there about like he did try to meet with the Rockets about going to the Rockets, which we'll see if there comes anything out of that, because I don't think that was done legally. Let's just say that without the tampering element in there. And he doesn't really get into what happened with the Rockets, but it was obviously clear the Rockets didn't want any part of that. So so here we are. But this probably, my guess is, puts this story to bed for the most part, and
Mm-hmm.
until they play, right? And then it'll be a thing again, because it'll all pop back up, because that's just how this stuff works.
Yeah, I'll have to look at the schedule and see when do the Clippers and the 76ers play each other. But yeah, that's definitely I think this is kind of okay. We know what Harden's side is. Now we know what kind of Morey's side is. And it makes sense that the 76ers didn't want to give him a max. I wonder what, like, if they were at a point where, like, yeah, we're just not going to talk to him at all, like, what was the offer going to
Mm-hmm.
be? Was it so low that they knew there was no chance that he was ever going to even negotiate? What did that, what was that going to look like? So I will say, though,
We have
this,
to
that
wait
whole,
a while, Trevor, for them to play. They play
oh,
Sunday, March 24th in LA. It's an afternoon game as part of a
come on.
Clippers, or excuse me, 76ers road trip. And then they play 3 days later when the 76ers are on, geez, I'm messing this up. They play 3 days later when the Clippers are on an East Coast trip. They play on the 27th. And that one's an ESPN game that day. So we have a while. We have several months. What almost 4 full months before we'll see these two teams go head to head.
Can we pull an NFL here and flex some games?
Right?
Can we do something like that? Can we rearrange the schedule and bump that up? Because that would certainly, we're going to have a little bit of a lull post in season tournament. Let's spice things up a little bit.
Right. There we go.
Let's throw. In fact, is there a way to bump that to like a Christmas Day game somehow or
That'd be
something?
fun. Yeah.
Throw that on there.
I think
That'd be a good
people
time.
might like that, instead of what do we got? We got Sixers Heat on Christmas Day, make it Sixers Clippers instead.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Mm-hmm.
no disrespect meant to the Heat, but
No,
yeah,
but
so
just the
we'll
drama
see.
would be fun.
It
And
was
that
funny. Did you see somebody commented? They're like, I keep forgetting to ask, like, are you guys going to do something special for Celtics Lakers? They're like, even though it's like right smack in the middle of Christmas Day, and I was like, yeah, we'll have to figure that out. That's
yeah.
always a little bit of a sore spot around here, anyway. So we'll figure something out. It will be a work day, and we'll figure it out, from that respect.
Yeah, we'll have to sort through it. I am Clark Griswold this year. I have the family coming here.
Oh man,
So I'm hosting. That's gonna be the stress is mounting, Keith. The stress is
I can
mounting.
imagine.
Yeah. So everybody's coming here. So there's going to be that element of it too. But yes, we will have to figure out something, some kind of way. Everybody knows I'm obviously going to have to do some stuff for the game. So we'll figure some things out. But
We'll figure
I,
something, but we'll come with coverage after the fact, as always, if nothing
for
else.
sure.
3 weeks
So
from today.
I can't believe it.
It's crazy.
It's
Yeah.
sneaking up on us. And but I'm excited. I can't wait. I'm excited.
Yeah, no,
The
I am too. We finished this weekend. We finished putting out. We had a couple more things to put out in the yard, and feels
Yeah.
like our yard decorations are growing by the year, and that. So we got some stuff going on out there. So it's fun, man. It's a good time. So we're ready to go.
So last thing on the James Harden situation, I don't know about you, but every time that Daryl Morey painting of James Harden, like we have no idea what this thing looks like, but
Yeah.
every time in my mind's eye, this is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the painting from Dodgeball, the grab the bull by the horns, just with James Harden's face on it, and that's what I'm picturing that Daryl Morey has like hanging over his fireplace.
Be amazing. I somehow I'm gonna guess it's more abstract than that, just based off what they wrote about the artist. But yeah, I mean it could be. I don't know. It's just kind of weird to me. I don't know. That seems weird. But then again, I mean, I grew up with posters of all these guys like on every square inch of wall space I had. So, but then I also grew up and took those things down. So I don't know. But I guess it meant a lot to him to have his two MVPs that worked for him, and
Yeah.
that's there, and got them posted. So I
I
don't know.
wonder if it's
Just
still
weird.
up, the painting.
He said it was. He
Hmm.
he said with Ramona Shelburne in that article, like he won't. He had the same artist do one of Joel Embiid too when Embiid won his MVP, and he put the two of them up together. So
Hmm.
I don't know. It's like right on the entryway of his house too. So it's like sounds like everybody sees it as soon as they walk in.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
let's get on to some other news here. We've got Terrence Ross announcing his retirement. Um, he's the kind of guy who, like, if he really wanted, maybe he could still do something for a team, like come on to a team mid-season that just needs some scoring punch or something like that. But if this is it for him, and he announced that he's retiring, so pretty good career for a
Yeah.
guy who it's not when we think of the off the bench scores in the NBA, of course, we're going to think about Lou Williams, we're going to think about Jamal Crawford, but he's kind of in that territory, not on their level, but he was that type of guy in the league that can come in, give you some buckets off the bench, and was able to develop a pretty nice career off of that.
Yeah, he really was. He really blossomed with Orlando. He was
Mhm.
good with Toronto. He was kind of always like their fifth starter. With some pretty good Raptors teams that just ran into LeBron and the Cavs every year. It felt like. But then with the Magic, in primarily he came in and played mostly a bench role with them, and a couple years, 15 points per game, basically 3 years in a row with the Magic, and he's retiring, somewhat youngish. He's 32. He'll
Mhm.
be 33 here, right around the trade deadline. But he said when he announced this, it was on his podcast show. It's weird. I don't know if it's necessarily just a podcast because I know he does a lot of stuff with streams himself playing video games and all this stuff. But he said that he like his main deal was he missed his family, and he's like being around the family so much. He's like I just don't want to leave them.
Yeah.
Now he's like it's been really hard to not be around. We got to remember too. This is a guy who got traded and then bought out last year. So last year he ended away from the family. As far as I know, he's still living here in Orlando with his family here from his time with the Magic. And I think they've basically decided this is going to be home, which a lot of players make this area home when they finish up for a lot of reasons. So I think it's, with Terrence Ross, you've got that part of it too. But he also said he's got some back stuff, some hip stuff, some knee stuff. And I think it's all when you put it all together, it's probably like, man, I don't want to go through what it's going to take to get ready to play again, and do all that stuff. And reality tells us it's a minimum type contract is what he'd get
Mhm.
at this point in his career and all that. So I think Terrence Ross is looking at him like I made enough money. I'm happy. Like I can call it this. And by all accounts, his other stuff is successful that he does, where he does a lot of this streaming stuff. So good for him on moving on to the next phase of his career.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. If he's ready to move on, then by all means, move on, especially if you get to spend more time with family. Never gonna Never going to criticize anybody for that. That's for sure.
No. Yeah.
Ben Simmons out 2 more weeks, and then we'll kind of see what's. Well, I do wonder if it's really going to be 2 weeks or if that's
Yeah.
going to stretch any further. Dealing with that issue, I saw that he essentially got an epidural.
Yeah.
There's that's man. I really wanted to see Ben Simmons get back, even be 80% of what he
Mhm.
was. That would have been a big thing. And maybe the back injury heals up and that's where we go. But it just feels like every time we think, okay, here we go, he's coming back. It just doesn't quite work out.
And he really wasn't playing badly when he was out there for the Nets. He had started all 6 games. He had averaged 6.5 points, but he was basically playing as a distributor at the point guard spot, 10.8 rebounds and 6.7 assists. So, it's very small sample size, obviously, but the 10.8 rebounds is, that's two more than his highest he had ever averaged. 6.7 assists is right, getting close to in line with what he'd averaged for his career too. There's defense had looked pretty solid in those games. No, he wasn't shooting jump shots, but he's never going to shoot jump shots. We know that at this point. So yeah, it was just it's a bummer, man. It sucks because it's starting to seem like this back thing, maybe it doesn't get right. And then this is just kind of how it goes. And there's very much a world, and I hate for it to be like this, but there's a world where this time next year, we're talking about Ben Simmons expiring $40 million contract.
Yep.
Because that's what it'll turn into, whether that's over the summer or over the course of the next season and into next season. Is that those big contracts become trade chips for a reason, and the Nets are a team that are in position probably to, as long as this year goes okay and they're at least in the play-in mix and that, and fighting to get into the postseason. I think they're in position to say, all right, let's load up. And that could be the way they load up is, via making a trade, using Simmons and the big contract to get it done. And they've got all those extra first round picks from the KD trade and that. So we'll see where that goes with that. Did you see that thing? I'm going to bring it up here because it's Nets related. They want 2 first round picks for Dorian Finney-Smith.
I saw that.
Like that just screams that is
It's
full on
December.
screams. Yes. Everybody needs 2 first round picks right now, right? Like
Yep.
Dorian Finney-Smith is a nice player. They're not getting 2 first round picks for Dorian.
You want the 11th guy off the bench, 2 first round picks, right? That's
right. Yeah.
But it's the beginning of December. This is we did this dance last year, and I remember it very specifically because the Lakers were in the middle of all the Russell Westbrook stuff, and it was oh, you want to offload Russ? That's going to cost you a first. You want anybody who is actually physically capable of stepping onto a floor? That's another first round pick, maybe 2. Give us everything, and that wasn't a specific like Lakers Russell Westbrook thing. That was everybody in the league wanted top dollar for anybody because nobody was ready to make moves right now anyway. So why not ask for everything and then you have some room to negotiate down? But yeah, that I did notice that was it was kind of funny. I know that 3-and-D type guys go at a premium, and we always caution too that not all firsts are created equal, that there is massive fluctuations in value depending on what the first actually looks like. Is it a top 20 protected first, or is it a first that could realistically be number 1 overall? The value fluctuates wildly there. Is it a first that's more likely to become a couple of seconds and it's not even really a first? So we've got plenty of that to remember when we're looking at these kind of situations. But yeah, look, it doesn't surprise me that the Nets want way more than anybody would pay because they can always back off of that as we get closer to the trade deadline. If they say, give me a couple of seconds, well, then a team's going to try to negotiate them down to 1 second, and then where do you go?
Well, if you said a couple seconds, you'd have 15 teams right now. Like, all right, let's go. Let's make a deal today. For Dorian Finney-Smith. So yeah, it just kind of made me laugh because I was like, there it is. There's our textbook example of everybody's price is way too much right now at the moment. So yeah, it's interesting. But the Nets they're I keep kind of waiting for more from them. And then I keep saying, well, maybe this is just what they are. They're, right around a 500 team. And that's probably fair considering the really in-season teardown they went through last year. And they didn't do a ton this offseason. They made some moves around the edges because they'd already done their big stuff. They did their big moves last trade deadline. So it's obviously you re-signed Cam Johnson. That was a big move. I don't want to knock that down, but I think we all knew that was coming, barring something getting really silly with him in an offer sheet. So yeah, I keep looking. I'm like, is there more here, or is this kind of what they are right now? And it probably is more. I need to readjust and say this is probably what they are at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Last thing we've got, the Grizzlies have signed Jaylen Noell once again to another hardship contract. Again, the Grizzlies have been dealing with tons of injuries so far this season, and they need all the healthy players they can get. So Jaylen Noell gets another deal with them. How is this it? It's one more, and then they've got to make a decision here, or can this keep going?
In a normal 10-day case, it's 2, and then you have to sign them for the rest of the season. I don't know if there's an allowance in a hardship. I'll have to look that up. I'll have to get into the CBA and actually get in a little deeper on that one and find out. So I'll try to remember to come back with that tomorrow. I'll pull the CBA up when we finish, and I'll get in there and look. It is interesting. Jaylen Noell started a game for the Grizzlies while on this, so it took him a week and a half to get into the starting group for this Memphis team. And it's just mostly they need anybody who can create off the dribble that isn't Desmond Bane. That's been a major struggle for them, but there are signs of life for the Grizzlies. They're playing better. They're playing games where their defense right now it looks a lot better than it did earlier in the season. The offense is still their single biggest issue. They're having to figure some stuff out with that, but they're 5-14, so we got 6 more games with Ja Morant out. If you could win 2 or 3 of those, I'd say you've put yourself in a spot where, all right, we can still make a run at this thing. Right now they're 4 games out of the 10th seed, so not too bad right now, right? It's 4 games in the beginning of December. In that middle of December when Ja Morant gets back, you could kind of stay in that range. That's not the end of the world. It's 4 games when we get around the trade deadline, and after that starts to feel a little bit like a big hill to climb. So we'll see. But it's in some of the teams in front of them. Let's be kind and say I think may reprioritize things as the season goes along. Where Memphis, I don't know that they're gonna do that. So we'll see. But that also assumes Ja Morant comes back and is ready to go day one, that he can play and play every game all the way out. So we'll see what that looks like.
Yeah, they picked up a couple of wins. They beat the Dallas Mavericks, although that was the Mavs without Luka.
Yeah,
and then they got a win over the Jazz as well. So that helps them. We were talking about whether or not Ja would be back in time to really make a difference here. Those 2 wins gives them a little bit more potential here to make that jump up, but again, they have to hurdle. I mean, right now the Warriors are the 11 seed in the West, so you'd have to hurdle past them, past a number of other teams, but they're not completely. There's enough time left in the schedule to where they're not completely out of it. But if Ja comes back and they have trouble reintegrating him to the rotation or something, and you go on any kind of prolonged losing streak, that could really put them in a tough spot. But again, I think they do get considerably better with Ja back, and they become that much more dangerous. And then who knows? Maybe they find themselves sneaking in to the mix there.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess by the trade deadline they're at least within striking distance to try to do something to be in the race to get in. And then I don't want to start this in the beginning of November, but then we get into are they the team nobody wants to see if they make it through the plan. But I think that holds a lot more strength when the Miami Heat made it to the finals and the Lakers made it to the West finals.
Sure.
Like those things do start to hold a lot more weight when it's actually, this actually does happen. So then that becomes a more realistic thing versus just, something we say.
If I'm doing my math correctly here, it's 6 more games until Ja returns. Yep. That would be Detroit, which that could very likely be a win, right? But then you get Minnesota, you get Dallas, Houston, OKC. I wouldn't have the Grizzlies the favorite in any of those games, but it wouldn't shock me in those 6 games for them to go 2-4, though, for them to upset one of those teams and to beat Detroit. And that at least keeps you in the mix. And then Ja comes back to play against New Orleans, second night of a back-to-back for the rest of the team. But still, you've got a couple, maybe you pick up a couple of wins, and then and then you're off and running once Ja returns, and then you see what's what to finish out the season.
Yeah, you have to win the Detroit game.
Yeah.
You have to win the home game against the Rockets because they apparently are not going to win a road game this year. So if you can win those two and then maybe steal one of the other ones, maybe guys are out or something like that. Now you're talking, right? We had I think initially both kind of said go like 10 and 15 without Ja. That feels, like you're doing okay. But that was also 10 and 15 without Ja, not 10 and 15 without Ja and 7 other guys.
Right.
Like now, if you can get into the 8-win range, considering everything you've gone through, and you get some of these guys back and keep them on the floor, you're gonna have to basically, like we talked about with the Lakers a lot last year, you're gonna have to put the pedal down and run all the way through the tape at the end. But that was a real good mixed racing metaphor there because I don't do tape with race cars, but that's but you're gonna have to
cross
really
cross the checkered flag, the finish line. Yeah,
checkered flag, and as you jump in the pit of life.
I'm not a huge racing fan, so I'm sure I'm sure I'm missing a low hanging fruit here somewhere.
Yeah, I have much to the chagrin of family members of mine. I have several uncles who worked on NASCAR pit crews for most of my life. I never got into it. It just didn't hold any interest for me, and completely wrong. And we call this the scheduled nonsense or unscheduled nonsense. I have this belief of I could do that. I could do that. And it's funny because like anybody I know who's done one of those things where it's like you can drive a real race car, they're like, man, I was flying around that track. How fast was I going? They're like 80. And it's like, what? And it's like, yeah, you were going about 80. Like that's like it's just you feel like you're going faster with all that power underneath you, I guess. But anyway, to my point with the Grizzlies, they're going to have to run all the way through the end of the season very hard, trying to make up ground, trying to get into the race. Not impossible. We saw it again. Lakers did it a year ago, so maybe the Grizzlies could, and it would help them if a team or two says, "Man, we just don't have it this year," and they prioritize the other way. But it's something we'll be watching, obviously, when Ja gets back, because you didn't want them for a little while there. It looked like they were going to be something like 5-20 when Ja got back, and I suppose that's still possible, but it seems less likely right now, and that's a little bit better than what we could have expected.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, I think that's a good way to kick off the week. We will have plenty more coming every day this week, Monday through Fridays, where you find the show. Make sure that you guys do subscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't forget to turn on notifications. And then, of course, over on the podcast side, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, give us that 5-star rating and review. All right, everybody. Till next time. See ya and stay safe.